Hey guys, Tom here. Just a really quick thing before we start the show. Due to Gonzo recording into the wrong microphone during this past week's show, he's going to sound significantly lower quality from the rest of everyone else's audio. I've done what I can to fix the issue, but it's far from perfect, so I apologize for any difficulty this might cause while listening. Alright, on to the show.
Hi, this is Kaylin Salcedo, aka Mars Girl of Mars Girl Productions, and you're listening to Nerd to the Third Power.
Hi everybody, and welcome to Nerd to the Third Power, your one-stop shop for all things nerdy and awesome. I'm your host and master of ceremonies, Dr. Gonzo. With me, as always, in this epic quest of awesomeness is our resident anime goddess, the one, the only, the beautiful, the Cat. Cat, how you doing?
I'm alive! Woo.
Okay, alright, and in our correspondence corner, let's see, there's Brian, who's with us as always. So Brian, how are you doing?
I'm doing alright. Apparently I'm mediocre, but I'll take it, I guess. I'm glad you guys, we're kind of doing a show. It drags me away from playing Dragon Ball Xenoverse, which is a game I probably should not have bought. I've sort of been obsessively playing it for the last couple of weeks now. My character is already level 70, and I'm sad.
But it won't be good enough until it's over 9,000.
Les sigh. I just put it right there, didn't I? Just like, here, just take the joke. Just take the joke. It's on a silver platter?
I ran with it. I ran right away with it.
And so Brian, who's this skinny fucker that's sitting next to you at the correspondence table?
Hey, language.
I am the ghost of correspondence past. Like I don't know, like 4 episodes, 5 episodes. How long past has it been?
Dude, we're already in like the 250s. You've been gone like a while. You like fucking Rip Van Winkled yourself into the future. That's what you did, dude.
What year is this?
What year is it?
You believe it to be the year 2015, when in fact it's closer to 2215.
That does explain why I woke up with a ZZ Top beard.
Oh, every girl's crazy about a sharp-dressed man. Can't sing anymore, else I have to pay. Alright, yes, John is back with us, and how exciting that, because we have a very exciting discussion this week. We are discussing the Avengers, Age of Ultron, probably the biggest movie of the year, at least until Star Wars comes out. So definitely a movie that we have all been looking forward to, that we are all champing at the bit to talk about. So we're actually going to skip Ask a Geek this week and jump right into the headlines so we can get right on ahead with that and devote some extra attention to Age of Ultron. So Brian, take us away with the headlines.
Thank you, and welcome to this week's Multiverse headlines that are actually pretty bare-boned. Since we are in between conventions at the moment, we don't have a lot of news to go on. Secret Wars is starting up for Marvel, and hopefully I'm going to get some more information about where it leads and how it ends or what's going to happen afterwards, but until then, well, I don't have a lot to work with. But I do have a few sort of tidbits here and there. First up, cartoonist Daniel Clowes and Fantagraphics have been working together for a few weeks now on a possible new book, though details were scarce until the final announcement happened yesterday. The new book is called Patience. It's a 180-page graphic novel from Clowes, and it's going to be coming in March 2016. It's described as a psychedelic science fiction love story. And the art seems to be a throwback to some of the earlier Crowell work, like his book on Death Ray. The reason being that Sagan's going to take so long for the book to come out, 1 whole year, is because Fantagraphics was working with Cal to have the best possible way to have his art put together here in the book, so look for that next year. Another little kind of comic book news, Late Night with Conan O'Brien announced last night on TBS he'll be filming in San Diego during Comic-Con International. The tapings, which is, I believe, a first for any major late-night show to take place in San Diego, especially when Comic-Con's around, will happen from Wednesday, July 8th through Saturday, July 11th. This is after Conan just recently took his show to Cuba for the first time, filming a late night show on the Broad like that. So there's a lots of firsts going on for Conan. Now, Conan has actually made some friends in the industry, most recently being Bruce Timm, as the Flaming Sea character was helped created and designed by the famous artist. So I have no idea what's actually coming up with Conan, but it might be interesting to see a late night show actually take place right in the heart and center of San Diego Comic-Con. Sony has renewed Powers for a second season. Powers, the TV show that couldn't get on TV and had to go on to the Sony Entertainment Network for the PS4, is getting itself a second season according to The Hollywood Reporter. Powers launched about earlier this year, and the season is going to conclude in about April 28th or so. So it's also currently available on the PlayStation Network. So if you have the PlayStation Network and haven't seen it yet, go ahead and take a look at it. Truth be told, I actually haven't watched it yet. Powers didn't really seem to catch me as much as I thought it would. But hey, I'm just one person. This is going to be leading to a lot more original programming, they feel like, on the PlayStation Network and PlayStation Plus. So there's a lot of confidence behind the Powers show and why it's getting a second season. In other web-based news, Machinima and DC Comics are going to be bringing back a cult favorite, Dial H for Hero, for a web series. But it's not going to be called Dial H, it's going to be called #4Hero. It will be a live-action, visual effects-heavy action comedy about a young woman who's trying to make her mark in the world. She stumbles onto a life-altering smartphone app that allows her to instantly become a superhero, of course for a short amount of time. The twist: the powers are dictated by whatever is trending on social media at that moment. And that can only be semi-helpful. It's interesting, Dial H for Hero has actually shown up several times over the years since its first incarnation. Most of the time it's usually used a rotary telephone number. Now we're moving into app phones and smartphones, a modern day update. We have to see how this turns out. There's no launch date for it yet, but I could probably see it happening sometime early next year. And my last bit of, well, it's not really news, more of a tidbit I found, is that DC is going to put DVD Blu-rays in the back of comics for Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Justice League. It's going to be hardcover editions with a little slipcase for the DVD Blu-ray combo in the back. What's kind of interesting about this, though, is that usually they are only priced at $26.99, which is only about $2 over what a regular hardcover would be. So you're actually not getting really overpriced there. You're actually sort of maybe even saving money if you look for these Blu-rays separately of the hardcovers. There will also be a slipcase version of $145.99, which actually saves you about $16 if you buy them all at once. The comics that are going to be in there is Black and White, which is a Batman set, and they're going to have Batman Gotham Knights in there. The Death of Superman, which is going to have Superman Doomsday. Batman Year One, which is going to have Batman Year One. Justice League Origin, which is going to have Justice League War. JLA Earth 2, which is going to have Justice League Crisis of Two Earths. Wonder Woman Gods and Mortals, which is actually a George Perez book. I think a lot of people have been looking for the hardcover of this one, which will have the Wonder Woman Blu-ray in the back of it. And then you have the slipcase version. Now, there are some here missing. New Frontier, Green Lantern, and several others. But it's probably just a first wave. If this actually becomes successful, then you actually might have a second wave coming through it. It's an interesting idea. It's not a bad idea, really. And you're actually saving some money if you haven't already had these Blu-rays and you wanted to get the hardcovers. A lot of them are based on anyway. But that's all the news I have for this week. I'm going to turn everything over to our returning film correspondent, John. John, take it away.
Thanks, Brian. Well, without further ado, let's dive into the movie bin and see what we've got this week. Well, we begin today on a somber note with the death of cinematographer Andrew Lesnie. Cinematographers are largely unsung heroes in filmmaking, as much of the attention and praise usually goes to the director for the final look of a movie. But much of the artistry and the technical expertise come from the cinematographer every bit as much as from the director, and by all accounts, Lesnie was one of the best in the biz. He was even recognized by the Academy itself with an Oscar for his work on the Lord of the Rings series. He was 59. Moving on from somber notes to happier matters, it's all Marvel from here on out in my headlines, so let's get started. First off, we finally have confirmation of Daniel Bruhl's role in the upcoming Captain America Civil War. We all knew he was going to be playing a villain, and more likely than not one of Cap's more infamous adversaries, but who? Well, wonder no more, my friends, for it has been confirmed that Bruhl is going to be bringing the nefarious Baron Zemo to life on the big screen. For those of you who don't know who that is, Zemo is one of the top bad guys over at Hydra, which goes to show that we're still not quite done with the evil organization after all. Also, he wears a purple cowl at all times because he accidentally superglued it to his face. So, you know, it's got that going for him. Next up, it appears that the Marvel movie machine isn't content with purely live-action fare anymore, as Spider-Man is set to get his own animated feature in 2018, directed by none other than the Everything is Awesome duo themselves, Phil Lord and Chris Miller. I don't know about you guys, but I'm actually way more pumped for that than I am for Peter Parker's inevitable live-action debut. Currently, it appears that the cartoon Spidey will not share the same continuity as the Marvel Cinematic Universe version, so don't be surprised if we see some radically different versions of established characters showing up in this movie. I wonder if this could be the first step in Marvel building an animated cinematic universe. Stranger things have happened. And last but not least, let's talk about something that's not strange. Namely, the ridiculously high box office numbers for Avengers Age of Ultron. As of opening weekend, Avengers 2 is currently sitting on $187 million, making it the second biggest opening weekend of all time. What's the first, you ask? Why, the first Avengers, naturally enough. And when you add in Iron Man 3, that gives Marvel Studios 3 of the biggest opening weekends in movie history. Not adjusting for inflation, of course. Truth be told, the only thing surprising about this story is that Age of Ultron's opening weekend wasn't even higher. But with a worldwide gross currently sitting at around $500 million and more money pouring in every day, I think it's safe to say that the final numbers for the second Avengers are going to be looking pretty good for Disney and Marvel. And that's it for your movie news. Now I turn things over to our resident anime goddess for the latest in all things otaku. Take it away, Kat.
Why, thank you, kind sir. Mainichi Shimbun has reported the death of voice actor Aikawa Kinya. Aikawa began his career dubbing over foreign films, eventually moving on to anime voiceovers, gaining notoriety as the voice of the Masked Racer or Racer X in Speed Racer. He later started a theater troupe for training young actors and in 2010 invested money in a playhouse and movie theater in Tokyo. He was 80. Nikkei is reporting that the Kadokawa Corporation is restructuring its internal brand companies. Since they're a major manga publisher, let's break it down and see what that really means. Some of the original company structure will remain, but some of their brands will actually be dissolved, including Fujimi Shobo, their light novel company, and Kadokawa Shoten, their magazine and manga publishing brand. Kadokawa's new structure will be made up of 5 departments: the Business Life and Culture Department, the Comics and Characters Department, the Magazine Brand Department, the ASCII Media Works Department, and the Interbrain Department. Previously, the internal brands each kind of did a little bit of everything with their respective works. Of course, we don't really know for sure, but I assume this will streamline the business. So I guess ASCII's magazine lines will probably now fall under the Magazine Brand Department, and instead of Interbrain also publishing magazines, they can just shift that over and they can focus on software and strategy guides. And then a lot of their stuff can probably now just fall under the Comics and Characters Department, which would make it way easier for them to manage their licenses all in one place. Now, this is the company's second major restructure in the last 2 years. In 2013, they absorbed 9 of their subsidiary companies, which actually did a lot to increase their profits without doing a lot to cost people their jobs. This time, however, some 300 or so veteran editors are being encouraged to retire, which in Japan is kind of a big deal. When you sign on to a company, you're there for life and they'll take care of you. Japanese companies actually largely favor someone who's been there for longer over someone who might actually be better qualified but young or new. So yeah, the company will most likely see some layoffs. But what does that mean for the fans? Hopefully not much. The changes are meant to make the company function more smoothly and increase profit in a cooling market, but it shouldn't have an effect on what we see as readers of their publications. And in our case, we're reading stuff that they've licensed to one of our country's publishers, so there's definitely not much that should be impacted. But I do think it's kind of important to know that this sort of thing is happening. The anime and manga industries are struggling in just about every single country they appear in. And while sometimes I think shakeups like this are scary, it's a relief to see a company actually acting quickly to a changing market, since inaction is what got the industry aboard the struggle bus to begin with. And finally, 2 bits of news for you old school anime fans. First off, Sentai Filmworks has licensed the 1985 Vampire Hunter D film. No doubt in celebration of the 30th anniversary, they plan to release it digitally soon and on home video probably later this year. And this is pretty close on the heels of Discotech licensing the Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust movie. So yeah, lots of good stuff on the way for Vampire Hunter D fans. And Japanese licensing company Dynamic Planning will be releasing a brand new Devilman anime this fall. Now, it's too early to say if the new anime will be based closely on the manga or be some sort of original story, but with Devilman mangaka Nagai Go's own company helming the project, it'll definitely be authentic. Animation studio Actis, who have done key animation or in-between animation for just about everything, will produce the new series. But will we get it over here in the US? Maybe leaning towards probably. Discotech currently holds the license for the 1970s Devilman anime, which they've released alongside other franchises like Mazinger Z and Cutie Honey, which are Nagai Go's works and controlled in some part by Dynamic Planning. So I think it'll come over via Discotech, but I don't really expect there'll be a digital release for streaming or a dub for that matter. Still, it's been a long time since Devilman was animated, and given its colossal popularity in Japan, I think it's about time. And that's all I've got going on in the anime and manga world. Over to you, Dr. Gonzo.
And that's all the headlines that we have for Nerd to the Third Power this week. We're going to take a quick music break, and when we come back, Age of Ultron. Does it live up to all of the excitement of the previous Avengers film, or is it just kind of a flash in the pan? Stay tuned, we got a lot of fun stuff ahead.
Wise is just a name. Council Bluffs had never been. The fire came and burned away the only thing she'd have liked to see. Do you remember? Do you recall anything about her? Eventually
right, and we are back. And this week we are discussing Age of Ultron, probably the most anticipated Marvel Cinematic Universe movie since, well, the first Avengers. So, yeah. There's a lot to discuss here, so we're taking some extra time to talk about this film and give it the due attention that it deserves, which is probably going to amount to us just fanboy and fangirl squealing about it for 45 minutes. So hey.
At least we're honest.
Yeah. So why don't we start with Brian? Why don't you give us a brief rundown of the plot of this film?
All right, but beforehand, I want to put in a little asterisk. If anyone gets possibly curious or confused, there is in fact a comic out that came out, I think, 2 years ago, called Age of Ultron. And I know some people who may watch the film is going, I'm going to go out and buy this book. All right, this book has no connection to this movie whatsoever. It is not an adaptation. So just be aware, if you go and find that book, you're going to get a completely different story. With that out of the way, the story of this film is actually pretty simple. The Avengers start out just finally taking apart Hydra, and then taking apart Hydra, they get the scepter, Loki's scepter, from the very first Avengers movie back. Tony Stark is looking over the technology of it, sees something absolutely amazing, and then says, all right, I can take this technology and help build the better world that I really need to be to protect it. And in protecting, I'm going to make Ultron. Ultron is officially made, and it just goes and starts wrecking shit up for everybody. Along the way, people hate Tony Stark because, hey, you should have talked to us about this. You built a giant killer robot. He goes, well, it wasn't my plan to build a giant killer robot. I just want to build a giant robot. The killer part came afterwards.
But if the internet has taught us anything, it's that intention does not matter.
I mean, this is very much a Age of Ultron for Dummies sort of explanation of it, is that Ultron wants to basically destroy the world to better humanity so it can evolve, and the Avengers are going to have to stop him from doing that. And along the way, you're introduced to several new characters that probably will show up in other different films. You meet two new characters of Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, and I hope you didn't get attached to one of them.
I'll be off in a corner sobbing, thanks.
Yeah, obligatory spoiler warning, but honestly, if you've listened to our movie reviews before, you should know that those are coming.
There were spoilers all over the internet like a week before the movie came out. I know a lot of people went off the grid for a while going, no, I don't want to know. I know I did.
So let's start with our general thoughts on Avengers Age of Ultron. John, why don't we start with you on this one?
It was alright.
Well said.
No.
Days of waiting, just going oh, what is he going to think? What is he going to say?
Yeah,
better.
All right.
Yeah, it's alright. Cue and music.
Alright, let me go into a bit more detail. I enjoyed it. I did. I would have enjoyed it probably a bit more if I had been watching it in a theater where all the speakers were working. But I enjoyed it. I felt that it did what it needed to do to set up the new characters, to set up the next phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and all that. I laughed at all the funny bits. I gasped when Quicksilver died because I genuinely did not see that coming. Joss Whedon knows what he's doing. He did... Everything was telegraphing that was going to be Hawkeye that bit it. I was genuinely caught off guard when it was Quicksilver. But to be honest, despite the fact that I did like it, that I did enjoy it, that I did think it, did what it was supposed to do, I wasn't as into it as the first one. And I think it's because it felt just a little bit more disjointed than the first one did, in my opinion. And also because I felt like it was more focused on setting up the next phases of the Marvel Cinematic Universe than just being its own thing. The first Avengers was all the pieces they'd been setting up for years finally coming together and all of us seeing them on screen. It was a culmination. This one is more setting the stage for the next phase. And whereas that's cool in its own right, it just didn't absorb me as much.
Yeah, what about you? What are your general thoughts on the film?
I laughed, I cried. It was a great film. I thought it was a great Avengers film. I really liked that it spent more than anything a lot of time developing the characters and getting to see the characters interact with one another.
Beyond just hitting each other?
Right. Because the first Avengers film was, here's a bunch of people and they're beating each other up and then they have to come together and now they're working together. And it was sort of like a very step-by-step process of becoming a team. But here's a movie that's going, yeah, they're kind of a team, but they're still a bunch of hard-headed people who are very, very different from one another and don't always get along. And I really liked that that was the dynamic that they went with. I kind of agree it wasn't as good as the first one, but I still enjoyed the hell out of it.
Brian, what about you? What are your thoughts?
I enjoyed it. It definitely at times felt a bit overstuffed. The plot sort of took a pause for a while as it set up the next, several different films of Civil War and Ragnarok and Infinity War Part 1 and 2. But when it slowed down enough that you could breathe and you got to see the characters a bit, and then Hawkeye, you finally got a spotlight on him because in the first film he was just mind controlled through 90% of it, and you got to see he's a human being, he's kind of sort of a good heart and good soul about everything, and then you kind of get to see where Black Widow and Bruce Banner, all the characters who didn't have their own solo film, I thought shined better in this one than they did in the previous Avengers. And so it's kind of nice to see the characters who, not necessarily the stars, quote unquote, but still get plenty of screen time, plenty of development going on. But yeah, I did have a few moments where I was kind of like, you're dragged. I feel the story definitely dragged or took a pause just because it had to do this other stuff first. Okay, that's out of the way. Here comes the big climax,
Well, I definitely enjoyed this film. I do agree that it's nipping at the heels of the first film, but there are definitely some areas where it kind of stumbled a bit. If there's one complaint I had about this movie, it's crowded. The party scene, it kind of exemplifies my issue with the film, because we see Don Cheadle as War Machine, we see what's-his-name as the Falcon, and we see a bunch of other characters that have been in other movies, kind of ancillary characters. And I'm just like, this is great, nice little cameos. And then these characters kind of keep showing up, and I'm just like, oh, okay, we're kind of juggling 9 main characters here. Now we've got 6 other side characters that we're kind of juggling, and it's kind of like, yeah, okay, it's cool that War Machine's at the party, but, do you really need to be at the final battle? That seemed like we kind of have enough people to keep track of at one time. Another thing was kind of the pacing. The first film kind of built up to its big major battle scene much more effectively than the second film did, where we kind of just connecting the dots from one fight scene to the next. I kind of felt like this film was kind of moving a little bit quickly. The first time we see Ultron, I think this is the quickest we've ever seen a villain turn to shit in any Marvel film. The first time he appears on screen, he's just like, you know what, I know what I am. I'm an evil robot. I'm just going to kill you. I'm not going to waste time.
Yeah, that bugged me. I will say that bugged me. His motivations were a little lacking.
In fairness, it's like, that's pretty much Ultron's gig from the comics, as I understand it. But in this film, it's like, normally when an AI comes online, the first thing that happens is it asks the big question: who am I? Why am I here? What was I made for? What am I supposed to do? This time around, he's just like, okay, who am I? I'm Ultron. Okay, I'm gonna kill the Avengers. And I'm just like, wow, that escalated quickly.
Well, they did have a whole montage to get him there. It was just very quick.
It was like a 3-day montage because of them trying to sort of, because they were trying to put together the AI that they sort of found. And this is sort of this is kind of the weird thing, because Ultron is not built by Tony Stark or Bruce Banner. He's supposed to be built by Hank Pym, but changes, comic book anger, bad, whatever.
Different things are bad.
Yeah, but the same reason he was built is there, and that he was originally built to be this big protector, this end-all be-all, the peace in our time, so we don't have to be the superheroes going out and saving the world or saving an alien invasion. And it turns out, because most AIs do, they're like, well, humans kind of suck. I'm just going to get rid of them. And you sort of, they do go by it quickly in that montage, but I think that's where it was trying to, because it was told they were trying to get the interface to work. So I think the programming was there, but the interface just wasn't starting. And once it finally started, he had all the answers. Now he just had to figure out a way of doing it. And the way of doing it was, all right, get rid of everyone here, destroy the world, and then whoever's strongest survives and humanity evolves and we're all safer.
When Ultron first emerged and he's chatting with Jarvis and he's going through images of war and humanity being terrible and going, yeah, this is no good.
Yeah.
It just felt like kind of rushed. Although I will say that once Ultron got going, I found him to be a really compelling villain. Most because he had some pretty salient points in his argument. You're confusing peace with quiet. You want to protect the world, but you're afraid of changing it. And there's some salient philosophical points in that. Now, if only he wasn't punctuating them with trying to kill everybody, maybe we could sit down and have a serious ethical discussion here.
I agree with that. If you could ignore the shakiness of his origin, I thought he was definitely one of the high points of this movie, if for no other reason than he's the first Marvel villain since Loki to have a freaking sense of humor.
That kind of bothers me.
I can understand why, because I'll admit, I'm pretty sure this is not how he is in the comics, and I'm pretty sure this is it's kind of weird for the genocidal death bot to be the one who's cracking jokes. Then again, in this version, he was made by Tony Stark, so maybe it's not weird for the genocidal death bot to be cracking jokes.
Towards the end of the film, where Ultron like sort of gets serious, when he was trying to get the Vision body and stuff like that, and his speeches during that time, I'm like, okay, this is more of the Ultron I know and read about. Especially like the last scene of him and Vision, where like he just looks at Vision and goes, "Oh, you're so naive." Like that's like that sort of conversation. Like, this is the Ultron I know, and he's blown up. I will admit, I did chuckle at, "Oh, for God's sakes!" as he got thrown out of the Quinjet. That was funny.
That was the best. That was the best thing in the whole movie for me.
I want to ask you guys and see if you guys noticed this, or if this was just me. But did Ultron kind of strike you as sort of a dark mirror image of Tony Stark himself? Like, how Iron Man would have turned out if he hadn't abandoned the warmongering weapon manufacturing ways like he did in the first film?
Oh God, yeah. I thought that was. I think that was supposed to be the subtext. I mean, the whole point of having him made by Tony Stark instead of Hank Pym, aside from the fact that they hadn't introduced Hank yet, and it wouldn't make much sense for Ant-Man to just show up out of the blue and say, "Hey, I made you a robot." Bye!
He would be a dick. He would do that.
I think the whole point of having Ultron being made by Tony Stark is to invite that comparison. And to be honest, it makes more sense to me for Ultron to be made by Tony Stark than to be made by Hank Pym. I hear Brian stewing over there. He's like, "No, but you don't understand." But and I probably don't understand. There's probably a whole bunch of history and mythology that I don't know because I just read the Wikipedia article. But
yeah, it's a yes and no. I'm beginning to I start to learn that adaptations are always going to be a little bit different. And yes, in this scenario, it makes way more sense.
So now let's talk a bit about the other standout characters introduced in the film. Because frankly, if we start talking about the Avengers from the previous films, we're just retreading old ground. So let's talk about the newcomers. So Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver.
The twins, yes, the twins that are not mutants? ?
Well, it's established in the film that they were created by Hydra experiments. That's how they got their powers.
That's how they got their powers. They're because they can't use mutants because of 20th Century Fox, so they got their powers a little bit differently, but they're the same powers to a point. Scarlet Witch's powers are actually supposed to be just pure on magic, but. Well, technically they were, actually, now that I think about it, so maybe no complaints there. But they called it like...
It's pretty undefined.
Yeah, they called it something else. They're like, she could do all this stuff. What's that? Magic. Yeah, sure. Right, let's go with that. What can he do? Run really fast. Sweet. All right, we're set.
His powers are a bit easier to wrap your head around than her powers, because they don't really go too into detail about her, which is probably good, because if you explain what they are from the comic book perspective, I think, like, aside from the, just firing bolts of pew-pew at things and getting some telepathy on, isn't like her basic power being able to manipulate probability?
It's manipulate...
That's Domino.
Yeah, it's Domino. It's manipulate reality, basically. And that's where the mind control aspect came in the movie itself. But she didn't really manipulate reality, but she was messing with people's minds, which she has done before.
I like that we kind of got a bit of an idea of a backstory to these characters, and I really would like to have seen more of that develop. But I think, and again, I think this comes down to the actors' performances. I really did feel like that there was a sense that there was a real familial bond between these two characters. Like these are two people who the only things they have left are each other, and they're going to look out for each other and have each other's backs no matter what. So when Quicksilver, spoiler, wound up getting killed, I actually I really felt for Scarlet Witch. Like the only person who's ever really looked out for her is now gone.
Can I just say that I think it was great that they had accents?
Yes.
Because, when your name is Pietro, it kind of sounds like maybe you don't have an American accent. Maybe you have some sort of accent because maybe you're not all friggin' American.
Yeah, because one of my main complaints with Black Widow is like I felt like she should have had at least a small hint of Russian accent, but she never did. And I get yelled at constantly by my comic book friends going, "Doesn't matter." I'm like, but it kind of matters to me. So when, having them show up in vague East European country,
Sokovia.
Yeah, Sokovia.
Yeah, it was not Latveria.
Not Latveria. to have them show up and then have them speak, in accents and stuff like that. I was like, oh, all right, sweet, yeah, because if you're from there, I imagine you would have to sound like it. Now, a couple times they almost dropped a little bit. That's I'm not gonna fault him for that. That happens.
He's British, so he's already got a bit of an accent going for him.
What are some other standout elements of this film that you'd like to call out?
Hawkeye finally got himself a spotlight.
Yes.
Like being shafted in the first movie, I think a lot of people were upset.
It's funny because that's a pun.
Shafted like an arrow.
I didn't mean to set up puns. God damn it. Oh, for the love of God.
Oh, for God's sakes. But yeah, for him to finally sort of step up, I think was pretty good to see, because I didn't expect that to happen. I thought he was just going to be pushed to the side again. But no, like having him when you have the secret family or whatever, and showing exactly what he's sort of been doing in the offsite, where like maybe that's why he wasn't around for as long period of time, and being the one to sort of put the twins together, kind of straighten them out a little bit.
He's like their babysitter. Like, he's the guy who likes kids, and he kind of sees them as these kids, because, he even refers to them as, like, punks or something. I think that was him. And he just sort of sees them as these kids, and it kind of actually goes back to the first Avengers movie when Hawkeye's helping some people off a bus, and he's getting kids off a bus, and I always thought, I wonder if he likes kids or not. But then, to see him, going out of his way to help a child, and then helping these two young not mutants who are just trying to make up for what they've fucked up. And I kind of get the feeling like he's such a family man. He likes to take care of people. And then you see him kind of like babysitting the Avengers and being their support. Like, he doesn't have to stand out. He doesn't have to have his own standalone movie to be awesome. He's got all this other stuff going. It's great.
Though I would watch a home repair show hosted by Hawkeye.
Yes. Yes, that would be amazing. Now, if you need to tear down a wall, I recommend an explosive-tipped arrow.
But you only want to put this much in, because you just want to keep the explosion neat and tidy.
I'd say an element that I'd like to talk about is the failed love story between Black Widow and the Hulk, which I did not see coming, and I was really. I know this is going to sound horrible that because hey, they don't wind up getting together, but I'm actually kind of happy that they went that route, because it stays true to sort of the Hulk's character, that he's afraid of what he's going to do, and he can't really be in civilization for any long period of time, and it also adds an element. It keeps the element of tragedy that surrounds both characters, and like I said, it's one of those things that I didn't see coming, but the more I think about it, I was like, these are both characters that have really tragic lives, and they're really the only two people who would really understand each other.
And there was a little bit of a hint, I think, in the first film, because she was the one that tried to talk him down before getting chased through the helicarrier. So this I think, was a continuation of that storyline. But yeah, and one of the weird things that I don't know if they did it or it was just me, but it looks like they're still trying to push the whole Bruce Banner and the Hulk. There's technically two separate entities. They share the same body, but they're really two different people. And that way, like, because when the Hulk took over, because Bruce Banner was like, yes, let's go, let's disappear, let's get out of here. But when the Hulk took over, he's like, I can't go back, I will screw things up, so that he goes off on his own in that little jet. So it's like two sort of fighting personalities, if you will.
I thought that exact same thing, and I was trying to talk to my roommate about it, and she was like, but they're the same person. I'm like, but they're not. They're not. Hulk made a completely opposite decision on purpose.
Yeah, they really aren't. It's Hulk is a Jekyll and Hyde thing, man. I mean, they're aspects of a personality, you could say. Like, the Hulk is an aspect of Bruce Banner, but I mean, even when Tony Stark mentioned Banner and he saw the Hulk got mad when he did, he's like, all right, don't mention puny Banner. Like, the Hulk doesn't like Bruce Banner, and Bruce Banner doesn't like the Hulk. This is established. They don't really think of themselves as the same person, even though you could argue that on one level they are. But on another level, they're not. So, it's that, like I said, it's a Jekyll and Hyde story. It's a werewolf story. It's tale as old as time, tune as old as song, Banner and the Beast.
You know what I just realized in our discussion about newcomers, we neglected to mention probably the biggest newcomer to the franchise, and that's the Vision.
Yeah, I was gonna mention.
Is he a newcomer? Let's think about that. Is the Vision really a newcomer?
Because the Vision is sort of Jarvis-y.
Yeah, and Jarvis has been around since Iron Man 1.
But
So he felt new and old at the same time.
something old, something new, something purple,
Full.
something...
With
Wait,
a
he's more like a
stone.
pinkish, isn't he?
He's red.
Okay.
Red and green is usually his colors. And
So
yellow.
he's Christmas, is
He's
what you're
Christmas.
saying.
He's red, green, red, green, and yellow because the cape became yellow.
He's
'cause
the Santa of knowledge.
Yeah, he saw Thor with a cape, and so he formed a cape.
Oh my god. Can
Yeah,
I
that was
just say
cute.
that before we had science bros and now we have cape bros?
He can even wield the hammer. Okay, I have to ask Brian. Has Vision ever done that in the comics? Has he ever picked up Mjolnir?
He might have. Here's the funny part, because I love the fact I love introducing new people to stuff. So, a lot of people have actually lifted up the hammer in the comics to the point where it's almost a joke now. So I like the idea that people still get fresh wide-eyed when it happens in the movies because it hasn't happened as often. But I don't think Vision himself wielded the hammer in the comics at all. But it makes sense for him in the film because at that moment in time, he was the smartest person in the room, the most pure person in the room, and obviously would be worthy to wield that thing.
Uh-huh. And
Yeah.
also, it was the perfect way for him to actually get the team's trust when they're all arguing over, well, should we trust this guy? Is he just Ultron Jr.?
Then he just picks up the hammer and hands it to Thor, and Thor is like, I will trust you with my life.
Yeah. Thor's like, I have no more questions.
It also sets up one of the most brilliant jokes later in the movie where through events, Vision winds up holding the hammer again, and as he hands it back to Thor, he says, it's amazingly well balanced. And Thor's just like, well, if you get too much weight on it, you lose power on the swing. Like, they're discussing their favorite golf clubs.
yeah, I know, right?
And then later, aren't they arguing, the others are arguing about how it doesn't count because Vision's a robot, technically.
Yeah, you put it on an elevator, and the elevator goes up, the hammer goes up with it. The elevator's not worthy.
And at that point, Thor is just like, oh man, I'm done with this.
Later, guys, I gotta go to my third solo film. Woo!
I gotta go see what Loki's up to that I don't know about because I think he's dead.
Let's discuss some of that, because we've talked about how this movie has set up things for future films. I gotta say, I'm kind of a little irritated a bit at the revelation that the scepter contained another Infinity Stone. Throughout Guardians of the Galaxy, we're pretty much beaten over the head with the fact that Thanos wants the Infinity Stones. He's had both the Tesseract and he's had both the Scepter in his possession. Are we really supposed to believe that he's had two of the Infinity Stones in his possession this whole time and hasn't known it?
Thanos is a terrible manager.
God, I'm just thinking of a panel from a recent Squirrel Girl comic where Squirrel Girl is like talking about beating Thanos to Galactus, and Galactus is like, what a tool. But
I'm thinking back on that scene where his emissary hands Loki the scepter, and I'm just like, I look at that scene and I'm just like, if he knew that there was an Infinity Stone in that scepter, he wouldn't be giving it to Loki. He'd be breaking it over his head.
Well, see, the thing is, I think Thanos did know that there was a stone in that scepter. What I'm picking up from the movie version of Thanos is that he's playing like this long chess master, this long chess game, trying to get all the Infinity Stones into his possession. And I think he was willing to part with one temporarily because he thought that Loki's actions would help bring him closer to the others that he didn't have. Basically, he was using Loki to get the Tesseract. Okay, that makes more sense.
It's really apparent that Loki did not know that that was an Infinity Stone.
Yeah,
because otherwise Loki would not have used it for the reasons that he did.
Let's hang on for a second. Let's keep the tally going. Correct, Brian. Are there 5 or 6 of these? I always forget.
I believe there are. There's actually more, but
isn't there like 9?
There's 6 that we care about.
There's 6, yeah.
There's soul, power, time, mind, and then
space and reality.
Space and reality, yes.
And heart.
And combined we form Captain Planet.
But see, okay, I'm trying to figure out how many we've seen in the movies so far and where they are at the moment.
We've seen 4. There was the Tesseract.
Right,
there was the red matter from Thor 2.
The ether.
The ether.
Yeah, there's the still unnamed one from Guardians of the Galaxy. And
Wasn't that one purple?
Yeah.
That one
Yes.
that might have been space.
And
Well, it
then
would make sense.
It's friendship, damn it. Friendship is magic.
and then the Mind Stone, which is the first one that's been explicitly named.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm guessing that if we had to make some guesses, I'm guessing that we know Mind, okay. The Tesseract might actually be space because it's opening portals in space.
That could be it.
That makes sense.
So what would that make the ether?
I think that would be reality.
Okay, that makes sense. And in Guardians of the Galaxy, I'm gonna argue that the Guardians of the Galaxy one might be the Soul Gem. Because isn't Adam Warlock really heavily associated with the Guardians?
He is, but the Soul Gem is usually, it's there to control and manipulate and alter souls, living and or dead.
Right. But you could also kind of argue that like their little friendship hand thing was kind of like a soul thing, right?
Possibly. It could have been power, because power has a lot of energy behind it, and then the one girl in the collectors thing used it to like blow up the collectors and kill herself.
That's a good point.
I think, since I can't say, because they're also the color scheme in the movies are screwed up compared to the color scheme in the comics. So like, I'm trying to play connect the dots as much as anyone else is. So I don't think until we can get
Orb in Guardians of the Galaxy is the Power Stone.
So it has to be power. Because why call something the Power Stone and not it be the Power Gem as well?
So here's a question, because they never resolved this. The ether was in the collector's possession, and then the collector's shop was blown up. Does the collector still possess the ether?
I'm going to say no. I'm pretty sure someone took it.
It's Howard the Duck. Howard the Duck has it. That
I was
should be the plot of the
literally-
Howard the Duck movie.
I was literally just about to say that.
Though the Guardians could also have the Gem of Rhythm. That's actually one. That's actually a real gem.
Now, I have a question that relates to the Stinger, where we see Thanos pull his, okay, fuck this, if you want to get something done right, do it yourself bit, and he puts on the Infinity Gauntlet. Wasn't the Infinity Gauntlet in the possession of Asgard in Thor 1?
They have confirmed that they are a pair. So they have the other hand, basically.
Yeah.
So there's two of them. Okay, I didn't know that.
Probably only one can put stones in it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The gauntlet's just that. It's a gauntlet. It's what holds the gems and sort of collects their power.
Now, another question about differences from the comics, Brian. As I understood it, in the original Infinity Gauntlet storyline, Thanos made the gauntlet himself. Like, he collected the stones, and then he made a shiny glove to wear them on, so he could control them. Is that the case, or do they have a slightly different origin?
No, I think if I remember correctly, that might be the case. Because I'm trying to remember exactly. Because it's been so long since I've read the Infinity Gauntlet. It's really sad. I don't have a copy of it anymore because my last one kind of fell apart on me. But yeah, I think he made it because you have to have something to control them. By themselves, they're super powerful, but without any sort of control, you saw what happened.
We're kind of running out of time here, so we need to start wrapping things up. So let's wrap things up with our final thoughts on the film Avengers: Age of Ultron. So, Kat, let's start with you. Final thoughts on the film.
I'm really excited about the stuff that it's put into play, the Infinity Wars. I like everything that's going to come from it. It just looks spectacular. I think it's a great addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I really want more.
Brian?
I definitely enjoyed it. It got a bit heavy at times. Too much of a good thing kind of situation. I thought like the fight scenes were pretty well put together. I thought the end fight scenes, though, they had a lot of really quick cuts going on. It got a little bit confusing. They did the swinging of the camera space spot again. Nice little callback, but with way more stuff going on. I wouldn't mind them maybe a little less editing. Let me take some of the cool shots in before we go to a next scene. But overall, I enjoyed the film.
Okay, John?
Pretty much what everyone else has said. It was a bit big for its britches. It was a little disjointed. It did sometimes feel like it was kind of meandering from one fight to another. But it was fun. It did what it was supposed to do. And, yeah, it's good.
And like I said, I mean, this is next to Star Wars. This is pretty much the movie that I've been looking forward to all year. Definitely a huge film, and definitely worth the wait for it. So this is the part of the show where we give our final ratings on the film. As always, our scale goes from best to worst. See it now, wait for matinee, wait for DVD, wait for rental, wait for cable, don't even bother, and Brian's rating, fuck this movie. So, what are your guys' final ratings for this film?
I'll start. I say, go see it now.
Okay.
I refuse to believe that people who are listening to this haven't already seen it, but if you haven't, shame on you and go see it now.
John?
Listen, guys. You already know you're gonna see it. I don't even see what the point of me telling you to go see it now is. Honestly, statistically speaking, after this weekend, I think everyone on the planet has seen it. So, yeah, go on. Shoo. Off with you.
Alright, and I guess I'll make it unanimous with See It Now. Definitely a worthy film, a worthy successor to the first Avengers film, and hopefully, you know, it's raised the bar and we can maintain that level of quality for the next couple years of MCU films. So, but that's all the time that we have for Nerd to the Third Power this week. Thank you as always for tuning in. It's been a blast. We'll see you next week. As always, I'm Dr. Gonzo.
I'm the cat.
I'm Brian.
And I'm John, lest you forgot in my absence.
Alright, we'll see you next week. Taka, play us out.